we have Mr. Brian Oneto. He's the district supervisor of number 5.
Good morning.
Welcome. Glad to have you on the show.
Well, glad to be here.
Well, we enjoy listening to the supervisor's report, but we have some other things to talk about. So what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, how about, I'm sure everybody'd like to talk about elections and campaigning and how that went and the joys of campaigning and the agony of campaigning.
Tell me all about it. I'm dying to hear it.
It's campaigning until you've ever done it. It's kind of a sweet and sour. There's sometimes it's kind of fun and interesting. There's other times it's rather hard on a person. For instance, I had one nice gentleman who I talked to a number of times over the years, and he wants Quartz Mountain Road paved. And it's a dirt road. It's not used extensively, and there's some homes on it. They do have my sympathy, but I told this gentleman that we're having a hard time maintaining the roads we have right now the way I'd like to see them maintained. And I told him I don't see us paving Quartz Mountain Road for miles anytime in the near future. And I told him also that the day that I voted to pave Quartz Mountain Roads when I should be voted out of office. And he said he paid tax dollars and he wanted Quartz Mountain Road paved. And I said, I don't see that. I just don't see that happening. Well, my wife called and talked to this nice gentleman. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
First name's Tom. And wanted to know, she asked this gentleman, did he know Brian Oneto? And he said, yes, he did. And he was not voting for him because I would not pave his road.
Oh.
And he was a nice man, but he wanted his road paved, and I sympathized with him, but couldn't do it. And so that was one instance. The other one was a gentleman up near Big Trees Market had called and said, hey, he'd like to support me. He wanted a sign. So I got up there, it was a little bit late in the evening when I got by there, and I thought, I'll just put the sign up and I won't bother him because it was about almost dark. And I hopped on my pickup, put the sign in the ground, and bang, here's this older gentleman. He's probably close to 80. He's always, you got my sign. He's, that's good. And he says, I'm supporting you. He said, I like what you said last time. I thought, wow, this would be going back 8 years ago. I thought, he remembered 8 years ago? I thought, so I says, well, what did I say? He says, well, I asked you, he says, what are you going to do for me? And I told him, and I've said this before to different people, and I believe it. I said, one of the best things I can do for you is leave you alone. He says, I like that. That's why I'm supporting you. And he was a very nice gentleman. So we got talking, and it was dark, and he was barefoot, but he wanted to talk. I like talking with people. And he kind of started telling about his life story. When he was 11 years old, he ran away from home. And I was like, oh yeah, for a day or two, I was thinking, permanent. And he said he had a wagon, he pulled up and down railroad tracks, and he picked up scrap metal and bolts and nuts and whatever he could do to basically survive.
Very resourceful.
Yeah, and that's this gentleman really was. So I wanted to know. I didn't want to, pry, but I asked him. I'd really like to know, why did you run away from home, if you don't mind? He said, well, I had a father that's an alcoholic and couldn't care for the family, and I think he went out to survive. And he says when he's 15 years old, he went in the military. He said, I lied about my age. He went in the military. I think in the submarines. And when he got out 17 years old, he went to work for Peterbilt. And I can't remember for sure. I think maybe pushing the broom, but for sure he ended up in the sheet metal department and working there. And he says, I love sheet metal. And one day they asked me to become head of Peterbilt's sheet metal department, which Peterbilt makes very nice trucks. It's kind of it takes some skill. Yeah,
large company.
And he says, I didn't tell him I couldn't read or write. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy became head of Peterbilt's sheet metal department, and basically he said he kind of couldn't read or write. What he found out later in life, he was dyslexic. And he said doctors told him that he'd compensated so many different ways that he says, if we tried to fix you, we'd wreck you as far as abilities. But he was, the gentleman had a nice house. I'd say he was a very resourceful individual, and 11 years old, went out on his own and did well.
That's a really neat story. So you get to learn a lot about people when you're out and about handing out signs or even just talking with people you meet on the street.
You learn a lot about people, and campaigning is not fun. But one good thing about it is, for better or worse, you learn about things you've done right, things you've done wrong, issues people have. Some of those things you may live in a county your whole life, and you may not know about a particular problem or issue, and people will tell you about it. And most people, whether you agree with them philosophically or not, most people in Amador County are really pretty nice people, and
I agree.
it's pretty enjoyable overall campaigning. It's a real job, but I kind of like doing it.
Oh, well, you seem to be good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what else do you want to talk about here? We have a little bit about what lies ahead for Amador County.
Well, you know, one thing that's coming up, I think people should talk to their legislators, is the EPA is looking to redefine the term waters of the United States. And it's a real important issue because the way they're wanting to redefine that term, it's where they'd have oversight of any water that lands on the United States, storm water, rainfall, and you're looking at a lot more permits, and I think, in my view, draconian oversight. I believe the board will be putting it on our agenda fairly soon to address and take a position. It'd be good to see people show up at that meeting and write your congressman, write your United States senator, tell them you're opposed to EPA's proposed definition of waters of the United States, and basically kind of goes back to what's navigable. That has definitions of what EPA and other agencies have authority over, like your backyard. What you're proposing, basically, if you have a little, almost like a puddle in your backyard, they're wanting to regulate it, and I think the government's going too far.
Yeah, that seems
Also,
a little bit over the edge. Well, we're almost done here. Tell me a little bit more about
Wild and
yourself.
scenic. That's something the Foothills Conservancy has been pushing
Right.
very hard. And I have a little flyer here.
Okay.
It's a beautiful flyer. And one of the things, they call me Wild and Scenic River designation is good for our local economy, people who get their drinking water from the river. If it's good for people who get their drinking water from the river, why are all the water agencies in Amador County and Calaveras County opposed to it? So I think what the Foothills Conservancy is putting forth on the Wild and Scenic, it's bad for Amador County. I think it's even bad for Calaveras County. The only elected body that's supporting it is Calaveras Board of Supervisors, and one of them has even written a letter saying he supports Wild and Scenic, but he's opposed to SB 1199. So,
well, thank you for that information.
Well, thank you.
We're just going to go to a quick break, and I really appreciate you coming on.
well, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Likewise.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.